Welcome to the Bald Brad Show. In today's episode, we're covering a variety of different headlines with you, from updates on the Hunter Biden probe to Donald Trump coming out and saying that a third indictment is imminent. Joe Biden is now targeting light bulbs as if gas stoves and refrigerators weren't enough, and distributors are giving up hope on Bud Light. We got a jam-packed episode for you today, folks. Before we jump into anything, support a true American patriot by hitting that like and subscribe button. Leave us a short, sweet comment down below. The question for all of you is, do you think Donald Trump's going to be arrested for all this stuff? Let us know in the comment section below. And also, head over to our website, baldbrad.com. We got a lot of goodies over there for you, including my book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Folks, you're seeing what they're doing in real time. It is their ideology. It is their actions that's destroying this country from the inside out. Find out how, find out why they're doing all this in our book, Trojan Horse. Get yourself a copy today by heading over to baldbrad.com. And also, over there, we got t-shirts, we got hoodies, we got Bald Brad Show mugs with our logo on the front and the American flag on the back. Let me tell you, folks, you're not going to feel more patriotic than reading our book, wearing our merch, and drinking out of our mug. Let me tell you that much. And lastly, most importantly, we do have a community of members here. The link is right here. Hit that join tab. Become a true American patriot today. Show your true colors, folks. Show your values and share those true colors and values with us in the live chat, the comment section, each and every episode. We got a lot of regulars that are members here that join us each and every episode that would love to engage with you in the live chat, in the comment section, as would myself. Become a member today by hitting that join tab. Become a true American patriot. All right, folks. Let's kick this off. I got a lot of headlines that I glanced at that I want to dive deeper in with all of you. The first one being Devon Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner, gives testimony to Congress that the VP, or then VP, Joe Biden, was no more than 20 business calls with his son. This is crazy, and it goes up 100% against Joe Biden and what he stated about, I know nothing about Hunter Biden's business dealings. Well, Hunter Biden's business partner, Devon Archer, told Congress in bombshell testimony the, quote, Biden brand helped keep Ukrainian firm Burisma from going bankrupt, and revealed Joe was on the phone or present in person at least 20 times with the son, who called him, quote, my guy, was talking with foreign associates. Again, we had text messages with Hunter supposedly sitting next to Joe Biden. We have actual audio of Joe Biden talking about the firing of Shokin, who was looking into Burisma. We have Joe Biden on tape doing a quid pro quo. I mean, we got Joe Biden this, Joe Biden that, Hunter this, Hunter that. We got it all, folks, more than what we have on Donald Trump. And the stuff that's come out against Donald Trump, yes, is damning against him, and we'll go look at that further in detail in the next segment. But if you look at what we have on Joe Biden, just publicly, can you imagine what we have behind the scenes on Joe Biden since 2009? It has to be head spinning. Republicans claim Archer's testimony added to mounting evidence, there you go, that the then vice president was involved in Hunter's overseas deals that ranked in millions from nations including China and Romania. However, Democrats say the phone calls were innocent and did not involve business. What I find fascinating here is, amidst all the information that we have about Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, Burisma, Rosemont Fonseca, John Kerry's son, Christopher Haynes, I mean, you just kind of look at the chart of information itself and evidence that we have going up against them, that they don't take that information and apply it to these phone calls and these video clips and the pictures and everything that we have and want to open up an investigation in on this. They just think that there's nothing there, that it's all innocence. But when Donald Trump has a phone call with Zelensky, they start creating and fabricating all these different stories about it and want to open up a widespread investigation and grand jury hearings and all this other stuff built around all these other things. So the Democrats, when it's convenient to them, when there's a Republican president, they'll find any sort of thing they can to throw it against the wall, and hopefully it will splatter so much that it will cover some other grounds that will open up another investigation, which has been going on since Donald Trump has gone down the escalator. But when it comes to Democrats, from the Clintons to the Bidens to the Obamas, they don't want to look under the hood on anything. And there's good evidence out there now that Barack Obama knew about all this. But again, we're not going to see anything come to fruition unless Republicans get their ish together and actually build something here to where the hood will be uncovered and all this stuff will be shown to light about what the Biden's been doing for decades and decades. Representative Dan Goldman, Democrat of New York, confirmed Archer told the House Oversight Committee that Joe had been on speakerphone multiple times while his son was talking with business partners, but insisted they were talking about necessities like talking about the weather and what's going on. Come on. Come on. Does anybody actually believe that? I don't believe that. Archer has come out and said it was way more than that. Republican Representative Andy Biggs then said that according to Archer, Hunter was on the Ukrainian energy board because of his family brand, which was being looked at by Shokin. Remember, Shokin was looking at, well, what type of foreign U.S. policy decisions were being made because Joe Biden was vice president. But the other side of what he was looking under was, how does Hunter Biden have any relevance of being on the board of a natural gas firm when he himself knows nothing about natural gas? But why was Shokin fired? Because Joe Biden said he wanted him fired. And if he wasn't fired, they wouldn't get the $1 billion loan. So he's on the board because of his family brand, and Joe added value and may have helped take down a Ukrainian prosecutor investigating the company. I would say so. We have him on tape doing it. Not only do we have him on tape bragging about it, but we also have him on leaked audio talking about it as well. In addition, Archer revealed that Hunter referred to Joe as my guy, according to a statement put out by oversight Republicans. Goldman led counsel on the first Trump impeachment, and the only Democrat present in the room of the testimony told reporters that Archer indicated that Hunter spoke to his father every day and approximately 20 times over the course of a 10-year relationship. Hunter may have put his father on the phone with any number of different people, and they never once spoke about any business dealings. Remember, this was in Basically, this is when his son got super ill, Goldman said, noting that Hunter and Joe spoke on the phone frequently before Joe Biden's eldest son, died in 2015. But here we go. Republicans had a different retelling of Archer's account. Biggs said as he left the room that Archer had testified Burisma would have gone out of business sooner if the Biden brand had not been involved or invoked. People would be intimidated to really mess with Burisma because of the Biden family brand. The reason why the Biden family brand is so important is because if you looked in the other day episode that we covered, where we have the text messages between Archer and Hunter himself, Devon Archer was pissed because when he was basically going to be thrown in jail for, I think it was embezzlement or something like that, he was upset that basically Joe Biden wouldn't help him and Hunter Biden wouldn't help him. And Hunter Biden was basically talking about this type of brand that the Biden family have. And furthermore, they were talking about how Devon Archer was part of the family and that family brand. And so now it's all coming to light here of this brand and how basically the involvement with the Bidens had helped Burisma not go bankrupt earlier than it would have been if they had not been involved. Furthermore, he added that Archer told the committee he did not know anything about the specific bribery claims made on the FBI's 1023 document, of which, if you remember, Christopher Wray, the FBI director, said, well, that document doesn't exist. And he kept pushing the idea that the document didn't exist. Then you had Chuck Grassley come out and say, look, I've actually seen the document. I have it right here. And all of a sudden, the FBI changed their tune. But remember, the FBI is not in the bed of the pockets of the Bidens. The FBI and the DOJ and the White House counsel, I should leave the White House counsel out of it because that's their job to protect the president. But more specifically, the DOJ and the FBI are massaging and rubbing the feet of the Bidens, and they've been doing so for quite some time, trying to cover all this stuff up. Look, they've known about this since 2014, folks, or at least 15. It's been going on for a long time. Not to mention, Biden's had classified documents going back decades when he was a senator, when he shouldn't have classified documents in the first place. Then he had classified documents when he was vice president, of which he shouldn't have in the first place. Then he had classified documents when he wasn't vice president, when he wasn't president, when he wasn't senator. So he was just an ordinary citizen carrying classified documents. But we're going to go after Donald Trump for a possible third indictment now on all this stuff. Nothing has happened to the Bidens. Nobody's been prosecuted. Nobody's been investigated. If anything, they got a sweetheart plea deal. Luckily, that was overturned. We'll see what's come of it. But that's what's kind of the update on Devon Archer's story. It was a bombshell testimony for all the reasons of Joe Biden's come out numerous amounts of times and said, look, I know nothing about Hunter Biden's business dealings. I just don't believe that one bit, especially when you're going back almost a decade now on these business dealings themselves. And when you're somebody's son or father, don't you engage in talking about business just naturally? I mean, if you have a family member, don't you ask them, hey, how'd work go? What's going on? What do the projections look like? At least that's what I do with my father. I would have conversations about people's businesses or banks or heck, inflation, how it's affecting certain things. I mean, I have a lot of financial conversations with my father. It could be just because we're both accountants. I don't know, but it's going to continue to come out with more information on this whole thing. We'll see what comes of it. moving into our next bit of news here, I haven't seen this, but I guess Kayleigh McEnany, one of the best press secretaries, if not the best secretary in American history, explodes on Outnumbered guest Richard Fowler, corrects him for botching her name. So on Outnumbered, co-host Kayleigh McEnany exploded on Fox News contributor Richard Fowler on Tuesday after he tried to defend President Joe Biden amidst allegations of foreign influence peddling. There is a clip here. I haven't seen it myself. I wanted to hold off until we got together here. It's by the Daily Caller. It's a little long, folks, but let's watch it together. Let's go ahead and roll it.
But the witness was unequivocal and stated very clearly that they never discussed any business on that phone conversations. There were niceties, and there was a hello, and we talked about the weather or whatever it was, but it was never any business. How much longer are we going to go on this fishing expedition? There is no evidence connecting President Biden to anything related to Hunter Biden.
Kayleigh McEnany, but as the Wall Street Journal editorial board writes, well, it's highly unlikely that Hunter wanted to talk about the weather with his father. He knew what he was selling. And as they say, we'll see what else we learn as the House keeps looking.
Yeah, it was all hello, niceties, and the weather. Well, let's play this out. Hi, Harris. Nice to see you. It's sunny out. That took 3 seconds. Not 20 phone calls for the duration of which we do not know. That is patently absurd. Goldman, as someone who is typically, good at spinning, that was a pretty bad spin. The weather, though, is a favorite of the Biden administration. You have Goldman saying it here. Remember, Karine Jean-Pierre blamed the wind for blowing Biden over on Air Force One staircase. Remember, she blamed heavy winds as the reason a border wall wouldn't work. And remember why he uses that middle.
She is the best. I'm telling Kayleigh McEnany, she is the best, guys.
Staircase on Air Force One because of extreme weather. So they love to blame the weather. You got to get a better scapegoat, guys. But what is amazing here is the liberal media. The New York Times saying it has long been known that Biden at times interacted with his son's business partners. Really, because you've spent the last year saying that that was not known, and in fact, that was a lie. New York Times goes on to say Republicans pointed to the interview as evidence that Biden had lied when he claimed he had no involvement in his son's business dealing. Fact check New York Times. He didn't claim he had no involvement. He told Peter Doocy in September of 2019, I have never spoken to my son. But leave it to the shameless left-wing media to cover for the president. You can't do it because the American people, they've been listening since 2020.
Harris, last hour you had Congressman Fallon on. What did you learn?
Well, one of the things I learned were just where we're not looking. And he and I agreed on this. We need leaders who will hold accountable those who are closest to them so they're not compromised and thereby the rest of us compromised. So the questions that really bubbled up for Congressman Fallon and myself were, well, is this just an uncurious former vice president that he wouldn't ask his son after a call or previous to a call? Who was that on that line? And if it happened 20 times, maybe there was an opportunity for this president, then vice president, to have said, look, I need for you not to do that. But if you're going to, I need to know who's on the other line, because this could have a certain tinge. This could look a certain way. The wrong people on the other line. But instead, what Hunter told us in 2019 in ABC News was, well, my dad was just simply telling me he knew about the Ukrainian situation and him sitting on the board. He was telling me, I better know what I'm doing. So already the story had migrated, even back to 2019. But now it's that total deniability that there was any knowledge of who might have been on the speakerphone, who Hunter was doing business with. We need leaders who are going to be more curious than that, if not only for their own CYA, but to cover the rest of us. National security is important. Who knows who was on those phone calls? Well, Devon Archer knew.
Richard, so much that has been teed up. Take your pick of what you want to say.
Respond to it all, please.
Sure. I mean, look, I think perspective here matters. And I think obviously none of us were in that hearing room, so we don't know everything that was said. But there was a couple things that stood out to me right away. Number one, it was 20 calls over 10 years, right? And I think that actually matters. So if you do some back of the envelope math, that's 2 calls every year for 10 years.
While vice president.
No, but some of the time he wasn't vice president. The vice president was the former vice president. He was a private citizen, and he called his son, and his son was at dinner. And to be honest with you,
that name is always powerful. That's how he used it to get into office.
But Harris, but it's also fair to say for every member of Congress and for every senator, for everybody who was a legacy admissions, they used their parents' names to get things, and it's not their parents' fault for what they do. I mean, i.e., Jared Kushner, who used his parents' name to get into Harvard University. Right? So my point here is,
hop on the phone.
yeah,
with,
but in
But I
Jared
want you
Kushner's
to
case,
consider
they
the
gave Harvard $2.5 million for him to
Ukraine
get there.
Talking
and
about
China.
Harvard versus
You've got to
Ukraine.
consider the players.
I'm not denying the players here, but what the House, the Republican House Committee is trying to prove is that the sitting president of the United States engaged in bribery with a foreign country. At this point in time, based on we're almost at a year of them investigating this, they keep saying there's smoke, but it could be condensation or it could be a smoke machine, but they don't seem to have fire
why did
here.
Obama officials reportedly warn the current vice president that what he was doing was shadowy?
Haley, they warned the vice president. Kaylee, sorry, they warned the vice president about his son's dealings. There was a Justice Department investigation that's still pending. That's not over.
Would you have done it if you were vice president and Obama officials warned you not to do it?
Yes, I
would have done it.
No, I wouldn't have done it. But let's be very clear. This is about his son, and his son, we also know, has a very checkered past. His son is currently under an investigation. He
didn't mention any of that. He didn't mention any of that in 2019 during that ABC News interview with Amy Robach.
So
he didn't mention any of that.
I want to get Cheryl in here, and let's sort of draw that out. Because I hear everything that you're saying, and I do think respectfully that what's different, though, is, the players and also the stakes. So admission into...
I do want to pause it there, because did you notice that his argument was about an agreement that there was phone calls, and those phone calls were likely about business dealings. But remember, going back, Joe Biden said that he knew nothing about Hunter Biden's business dealings, that he never had any conversations about it. I find that extremely unlikely, especially going back to 2009. And if he has a checkered past, that checkered past probably led to asking for advice from his father, who again was a senator, was a vice president. I mean, why would you not ask your father, who's been in Congress almost his entire life, sucking at the government teat, for advice? I would, especially when you're dealing with U.S. policy making decisions and how those global policy decisions could affect your own company and where they should branch out into and what type of decisions they should make. Why would you not? And again, who was looking under the hood for all of that was Shokin. I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to think this kind of broad in terms of the conversations you would have as a family and get advice of somebody that would clearly have wisdom. Remember, Joe Biden wasn't always brain dead. It just kind of has been brain dead, I don't know, since he's been running for president or maybe even vice president. Who knows? But that's kind of the pushback from Kayleigh McEnany there against Fowler. Not as big and dramatic as I thought it would be, but I thought Kayleigh pushed back. I thought everybody had some good points, including him, but it just doesn't kind of hold up on the smell test, if you know what I mean. Well, moving into our next story of the day, kind of some big news and breaking news yesterday. Trump says he expects indictment from Special Counsel Jack Smith's January 6th probe. And this would kind of roll into a third indictment, you guys. This is not looking good for President Donald Trump. I mean, this guy's getting hit so hard. It's not a good look because the guy's the number one opponent against the president. It's never happened in U.S. history here. And let's dive into this article. Former President Trump said he expects to be indicted out of Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigation into January 6 on Tuesday evening and slammed the looming charges as election interference. I'm going to show you a clip in a little bit from Joe Rogan's podcast where you had a comedian, Jim Gaffigan, just continually talk about January 6th and basically having Trump derangement syndrome on all this stuff because of the propaganda that the media, pushed out there. Remember, there was 40,000 hours of footage from January 6th, and the media for years decided to only clip like 6 minutes of 40,000 hours and show that to you. So when you had Tucker Carlson, when he was on Fox News, expose all this stuff of what other footage looked like, you had Capitol Police escorting the QAnon shaman around the Capitol. You had them just, their hands in their pockets, just having conversations with people in the halls. The reason why those images are so important is not that, oh, well, those Republicans that went inside the Capitol have an scapegoat and that's clearance for them to do what they do. No, I've always said those people are idiots. They should not have done that. And that is not values that Republicans carry. That's not values conservatives carry at all. They can label themselves Republicans, but I don't classify them as Republicans myself. You don't go storm a Capitol. It is a stupid thing to do. You had the the right to peacefully protest outside. Majority of people were peacefully protesting outside. But again, the few minutes of audio and video that these leftist outlets decided to show the American people portrayed it as something that it wasn't. Remember, these Capitol police officers were in there, hands in pockets, having a conversation, talking about the weather like Joe Biden loves to do, supposedly with his son, Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden's business partners, just having a conversation about the day, while Democrats are saying this was an overthrowing attempt of the United States government. Let that sink in. While people are just having conversation, giving people VIP access to the Capitol, just walking them around willy-nilly, giving them a tour, the Democrats are saying that this was an overtaking of the United States government. Does anybody actually believe that? Come on. Come on. You got to be silly. Nobody agrees that it was good. I haven't actually heard a single Republican or conservative say that it was a good thing of what happened. But to say there was an overthrowing of the government, the most powerful government in the world, really, let's give them what they say. Thousands upon thousands of people storming the Capitol, really. The thousands and thousands of people that were outside were protesting peacefully. There was definitely knuckleheads doing what they shouldn't be doing, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into this article. I went off a kind of a tangent, but it's just interesting to me how he's going to attach this to the January 6th about Donald Trump saying, hey, you should protest peacefully. Quote, I hear that deranged Jack Smith, in order to interfere with the presidential election of 2024, will be putting out yet another fake indictment of your favorite president, me, at 5 p.m., Trump posted on his Truth Social. Why didn't they do this 2.5 years ago? Why did they wait so long? That is a very good question. A very good question as to why they didn't push this 2.5 years ago. The timing's kind of suspicious when you have the election coming in about a year and a half. I mean, this is when things start ramping up here, especially by January 2024. This is when you're going to see a lot of things ramping up for that coming year election. And now you're going after a third indictment on this guy. A little sus. But remember, not only did Hunter Biden tell Devon Archer in a text message in like 2019 or whatever that we're not in a banana republic, but Joe Biden and his administration is echoing the same thing right now, that we're not in a banana republic. All the while, you're literally going after the sitting president's number one opponent with all of these indictments. I'm not saying Donald Trump didn't do anything wrong, but we'll break that down in an opinion piece in just one moment. He added, because they wanted to put it right in the middle of my campaign, prosecutorial misconduct. This would be the second federal indictment the former president faces out of Smith's investigation. Trump, who leads the 2024 presidential primary field, has already pleaded not guilty to 37 counts related to the alleged improper retaliation of classified documents. Again, there's more stuff coming out on a third indictment as well. This was kind of breaking news on many outlets, not just the Daily Wire, but Fox News and others, where Donald Trump is basically saying, look, this is just a witch hunt. There's nothing here. It's all smoke, no fire. But he's going to be indicted here on 4 counts related to his effort to overturn the 2020 election. So he goes on Truth Social just after 5 p.m., and several sources reported that the grand jury had handed out a sealed indictment in federal courthouse in Washington, D.C. The 4 counts included conspiracy to defraud the U.S. as well. So this is coming from all angles, from the 2020 election to January 6th to the classified documents. And the question of the day was, do you think Donald Trump will go to jail for all this stuff? Because that's what Democrats are pushing. They have been pushing. They've been pushing for that image of him in handcuffs. And I thought there was a great piece that I read by Ben Shapiro, I should say, a lawyer. I believe he still has his license to practice law. But I want to go through this article just real quickly because I do agree with it, but there's a portion of it that I don't. So he says here, the classified documents charges against Donald Trump warrant 2 questions. The first, should he be prosecuted? The second, did he violate the actual law? Let's answer the second question first. Based on the allegations presented by the indictment, if Jack Smith has the evidence to back those allegations, and he appears to have the evidence, then yes, Trump violated the law. In the same way Barack Obama violated the law, in the same way Hillary Clinton violated the law, in the same way Bill Clinton violated the law, in the same... I mean, you can go down the road, right, on who violated the law. The current version of the indictment, again, points out the tape of Trump informing people with no security clearance that he is showing them classified documents, and that he could have declassified them if he had chosen to do so, but he didn't. And we did cover that tape here on the show itself. Trump claimed for weeks that the actual document he showed them wasn't classified, but Jack Smith now alleges that they were in fact classified. If proved by witness testimony, Trump's defense on that score implodes. That's the part that I disagree with Ben Shapiro, and I'll tell you why. Ben is correct, but at the same time, I personally think he is wrong. Again, I don't have a law degree. My degree is in accountancy, as well as mathematics. But again, I'm going to show you a classified document. You tell me what it is. I have it here. I had the classified documents. I got the numbers. They wanted me to do Iran. You see, look at this. It's crazy, right? General Milley wanted me to go after Iran. I didn't even ask for it. He just sat there and gave it to me. He gave me all the documents. You know, folks, I'm telling you, it's a witch hunt. Can you believe what Milley wanted me to do? He wanted me to go after the Iranians, kill lots of people. He could show you and flash you a classified document without you actually seeing itself, the actual details of the classified document. As far as I'm aware, if you flashed a document at somebody, classified or not, I don't think it breaks any laws. So you could have a whole litigation on that, but he could flash a document and move the papers. That's what it sounded like on the audio, right? Him flashing through papers, and he even said so himself. He goes, oh, well, it's news articles and all this other stuff. You know, news articles or not, you flashing some documents at somebody without them actually seeing it. Is it a good thing? No. Is it breaking the law? I don't think so. The current version of the indictment also alleges that another Trump aide, a maintenance person at Mar-a-Lago, worked to destroy evidence of Trump's people moving around classified documents. It also alleges Trump ordered the security tapes to be wiped. This looks like it fulfills the legal elements of obstruction, which is Smith's accusation, basically. Now, here's the thing. We've seen this before, and not too long ago. Who had her people destroy evidence with a hammer, specifically cell phones, and use bleach bit on her server that was in the bathroom? First name's Hillary, last name's Clinton. So nothing happened to her. James Comey came out and said, no, we're not going to do it. Did she do things she shouldn't have done? Sure, she shouldn't, but we're not going to go after her. And matter of fact, Ben brings this up. Now to the first question, should Trump be prosecuted? The answer is no. He shouldn't be prosecuted. Hillary Clinton was left on the hook in 2016 for precisely the same crimes at which Trump is now being accused of, down to the wiping of servers and the exposing of classified information to those without classification status. Again, going after Donald Trump for showing people classified documents or having them. But again, Mike Pence had classified documents. Joe Biden, like we said in the first segment, had classified documents when he was senator, which he should have never had for decades, by the way, and more documents than Trump has. We still don't know what his documents were, but somehow we know what Donald Trump's documents were. That came out in a little bit of detail, which we covered here on the show. Joe Biden had them when he was vice president, which he shouldn't have had them. He had them when he was just a civilian, when he was no longer vice president or senator. Shouldn't have had them. So it's amazing how there's no investigation being done. Nothing at all. There's probes on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden lying about things, but it's just astonishing to me that they happen to Obama, Mike Pence, Joe Biden, but it's just Hillary Clinton, but it's all about Donald Trump. All about Trump. Remember when Clinton directed her immigrant maid to print out classified information and even entered a skiff to pick up classified faxes, including the presidential daily brief? Remember when Clinton's tech firm used BleachBit to wipe away her private server's classified emails, and then she joked about it? Like, didn't even try to hide it, asking whether the server had been wiped like a cloth? Yet Clinton wasn't prosecuted. Why? Because, again, FBI Director James Comey said despite the likelihood that foreign actors may have gained access to classified materials, Clinton did not have intent. That was a big thing, intent to distribute classified materials to foreign actors. Comey rewrote the law to avoid charging her because she was a presidential candidate. Now the DOJ is hitting Trump with that same exact book. Everyone can see the legal double standard here. It perfectly is obvious. The double system of justice is far more of a threat to the country than Trump's mishandling of classified information, which was not based on a nefarious security threat, but rather on Trump's tendency to hoard materials he personally likes. It's not, again, how can I put this in language that is simplified? Is it a big deal? Yes, Trump should not have done those things. But this is also at the same time and other scope a witch hunt, especially the January 6th thing. I mean, they're going to go after, well, why didn't you come out and say this? Which Donald Trump's proved that he came out and said certain things to stop people from doing what they're doing at the Capitol. He did come out and do it. It wasn't as fast as they would have liked, but that's not breaking the law. He didn't tell them to go do bad things. He said protest peacefully, which is on the tape, but people like to look over that. That's a nothing burger. There might be something with the 2020 election of election interference there. I think it's going to be a nothing burger. I don't think anything's going to turn up here. The one thing they might have him on again is the classified documents, but that's going to piss a lot of people off because of what, again, James Comey did, in 2016 or whatever it was, with the classified documents of Bleak Bit against Hillary Clinton. So again, the question of the day is, do you think Donald Trump's going to be thrown in jail for all this? Let us know in the comment section below. Well, there's a clip here of comedian Jim Gaffigan on Joe Rogan's podcast coming out and saying that Donald Trump is basically more corrupt than Joe Biden himself, and Joe Biden is in fact a compassionate father. This is kind of making airwaves. I haven't seen it myself. Let's look at it together. Let's go ahead and roll it.
Well, I think, look, Joe Biden's relationship with his son, or who obviously struggles with addiction. I mean, look, half of our friends struggle with addiction. It's like, he's a compassionate father. Is there some of that, like, let's make some money with our influence after we left office, or even
during office, when he was
even
vice
when we were
president.
senator or stuff like that? Is there some of that? Yeah.
It seems like there's a lot of that.
But compared to Trump, compared to like Jared getting a $2 billion contract, compared to like even the documents, like the documents that like Biden had or Pence had, versus like Trump literally showing the documents, some of them being I think we're going to find out, being really inconsequential. I'm not saying he was selling them. I'm not saying, I don't know if he was, it was like a big swinging dick move. I think that's different than, Pence having some documents in his house that he shouldn't have. But
you mean Pence or Biden?
Pence had documents.
Yeah, but I don't think
documents.
anybody's really concentrating on Pence.
But like by the way, I do want to make clear that I do have the approach of like, I could find something out and be like, all right, but like there is part of me that's like, it's very little doubt in my mind that Trump is the most corrupt and was like just the it's not, like Andrew Jackson was like, did horrible things, but like, I don't begrudge someone having kind of like kick ass and take no prisoners kind of attitude. It's, it's not the style. It's just, I think that there's repeated.
Does this not remind you of that conversation you're having with your uncle or family member or cousin at like a Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner that's a super Joe Biden fan, or just like a hardcore Democrat that's going to vote blue the rest of their life regardless of what happens? And you're just sitting there just trying to have some sort of actual intellectual conversation with this human being, and it's just impossible. That's just exactly what it reminds me of. This guy's all over, like Andrew Jackson. Joe, he's focusing on Mike Pence, but doesn't want to bring up Barack Obama having classified documents. Joe Biden having classified documents, again, when he was senator, vice president, or just a civilian in general. But he's going to hyper focus on Donald Trump and the classified documents that he has, even though Joe Biden has more classified documents spread out over a longer period of time.
Corruption. I mean, like,
but there's repeated corruption with the Biden administration. The corruption with his son. First of all, his son struggling with addiction. That's not my concern. I mean, it sucks. It sucks if you have a kid that's hooked on crack and is a fucking complete disaster, and he pulls himself out of it. Congratulations for him. That's not what It's the corruption. It's the clear influence by foreign agents and foreign.
You don't think Trump has more corruption?
I don't think there's evidence the same way that there's evidence right now because of the laptop and because of the recorded conversations. There's real evidence that they were getting money from other countries.
What about?
There you go. And then you're going to hear about, oh, what about this? What about that? I mean, to kind of put on the level of corruption, I always go back to this, is that when Donald Trump became president, they were looking at all his influence that he had in other countries. And I've always said that the Trump family was in real estate. They were in business with a lot of places because they were in real estate. They had already had a family brand. That's why Donald Trump was on television shows and movies his entire life, because he was a billionaire, successful businessman that was on a global level. And so they're getting all upset of like, oh, look what he's doing with his relationship with China and Russia and all these other countries. It's like, yeah, his family was a business family that became president. That wasn't the Bidens. Biden was a politician. His son knows nothing. And all of a sudden is on boards for like natural gas and all these other things. They weren't a business family. Again, that's why it builds more credibility to the case of what was going on. Where's all this money funneling through? Why do they have like shell company after shell company, like 20 of which we know of? Why do they have all these different bank accounts set up? They weren't a business family that came into politics. They were in politics that supposedly came and been a business family, which could work out. But when you're having money funneling from Romania to Ukraine, from the Chinese, our foreign adversary, and who else knows, it's just amazing to me that Jim Gaffigan could have this idea of just completely going after Trump. And they're so tunnel visioned on this whole idea because they have Trump derangement syndrome that they can't actually broaden their horizon to other ideas. And he's going to go out there and say, oh, well, I'm kind of open-minded on this whole thing. I don't think you are, man. You're struggling formulating thoughts. You're talking about Andrew Jackson and all these other things. I find it odd as making its airwaves here on other Republican sites, and I wanted to make sure you got a real-time reaction from me, but I want to know what you guys think in the live chat. Again, I'm in there with you. What are your thoughts on this? And I love that Joe Rogan's a level-headed guy there. He's not a Republican, by the way. Joe Rogan is far from a Republican, but he's able to sit there and kind of remove his biases to a certain extent and look at it from kind of a holistic view. And to say that Donald Trump is more corrupted than Joe Biden, one, I don't have any evidence on that at all. My inkling says that's just not true, just based on the behavior of Joe Biden, the lies that we've seen. He lies about his son. He lies about his family. He lies about his history. He's lied when he was a senator. He lied when he was a vice president. He lied when he's a civilian. He's lied when he's vice or president of the United States. You can look and see the cover-up from the administration on all fronts. I mean, this guy's been in office for not even 3 years yet. And look what he's done, or he's been in about office for 3 years. The crippling he's done to this country from the inside out, to our foreign adversaries going and invading other countries, to you losing money at home, to inflation going through the roof, gas prices, energy prices, all these things are just crippling to this country. But you're going to have people that are going to support him regardless, and Jim Gaffigan's one of them, folks. Well, moving into people that are crippling this country, you got Democratic Representative Ted Lieu blaming high temperatures on climate deniers. It's so endless with these people. It's so endless. We'll get into what I think about climate in just one moment. I'll tell you kind of my broad view of it. So Democratic Representative Ted Lieu of California has blamed hot weather on climate deniers. Mind you, folks, it is summer. What happens every summer? Let me know in the chat. What happens every summer? It gets hot. This is literally, if you even go back to our episodes around this time every year, we talk about the same exact thing because it's a revolving cycle. Like, I don't know if we have like the brain span of a gnat or a goldfish, but every year around this time, it gets hot. It is not a shock. We know it's going to happen. We know your electricity bill is going to go up because you're running the AC. Why are you running the AC? Because it's hot outside. So he says this, quote, suffering from extensive heat? Blame a climate denier. Climate deniers were wrong. Scientists were right. You have the power to vote out elected officials who refuse to deal with the facts and vote in officials who understand we are in a climate crisis. This comes from Ted Lieu himself. I'll show you the actual tweet itself. I don't know. Can we call them tweets anymore? What do you call them? X's? You know, their whole switch from X to I can't even get it right. Twitter to X or something. I don't know. But you have CNN, of course he's going to, show CNN. He couldn't show Fox News or the Daily Caller or anybody else or the Daily Wire. He could have shown any of those. It has to be CNN because, it goes with his jive. It goes with his viewpoint. Actor Dean Cain responded to Lieu, posted by urging people to vote the congressman out of office. Please vote out Representative Ted Lieu. Yes, I mean, Ted Lieu, AOC, Ilhan Omar, Chuck Schumer, all these people are just off their rocker, folks. There's some Democrats actually out there that have their head on straight, believe it or not. Look, there's some crazy Republicans too. Look, Mitch McConnell's going through some serious health issues. I think he should be done. Like, you ran your course, man. You did some good, you did some bad. It's just bring in somebody else. In the same way, we use that same logic with Joe Biden. Nancy Pelosi's been off a rocker as well. Dianne Feinstein needs to be out. I mean, it's terrible what's going on with her. Look, you can't do your job. You can't do it in what you were able to do before. You need to be out. But, people are going to vote along Republican lines, Democratic lines till the end of the day. We're going to still be stuck with this whole thing. Kurt Schleicher, can't even pronounce that. Someone tell Ted about summer. Thank you. That's exactly what I just said. Quote, let me be perfectly clear. There is not a thing that a politician can do that will change the future weather. If you think otherwise, you may be in a cult, tweeted Dr. Matthew Wicklicky? I can't even. All these, why can't we just have some normal names? Some normal last names. Why are they going to make it difficult for me? Who describes himself as an expert in earth science. Lou is just one voice within a chorus of climate alarmists. In a tweet last week, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, she's off her rocker, blamed Republicans for the weather. Yes, folks, you heard that correctly. Quote, hot enough for you? Make a MAGA Republican, or better yet, vote them out of office. So somehow MAGA Republicans just in general, are causing change of weather. Folks, Republicans, conservatives tend to want to have more clean energy on the level of nuclear. But Democrats don't want that. They want wind turbines and solar panels, which has a good case of ruining the climate even more, or the environment. But these are the same people that want to go after your stoves, your fireplaces, your kitchen appliances, your refrigerator, your sink, and now light bulbs, which we'll get into in just one moment. I mean, it's just head spinning that nuclear is the cleanest of all, and they don't want to do it. But then they're going to blame us for anything and everything. I mean, it really is head spinning that we're always to blame for everything. When honestly, even if you got into a philosophical level, I'm not saying politicians aren't corrupt in general, and just from both sides have really done crippling things to the American people. On board with that. But if you look at the outgrowths from the Democrat Party since they became a party itself, like the time of the Dixiecrats and others, what they've done to this country is horrible. On even a metaphorical level and ideological level is horrible. And that's why we wrote an entire book, Trojan Horse, How the Left is Destroying America. Folks, I go back to literally the founding, before we even founded as a country, and I talk about how their destructive ideology is crippling this country. I think there's more of an argument about that, and probably more of an argument of what they're doing to help further cripple this country on an economic level by implementing all these crazy climate change, climate accord initiatives. The United Nations Secretary General used the phrase global boiling while purveying climate alarmists and alarmism last week. Quote, climate change is here. Yes, the climate changes. It's always changed. Thank you very much. That is a fact. But remember when it was global warming, with Al Gore all those years, and they changed it to climate change? He says it's terrifying, and it's just the beginning. The era of global warming has ended, he asserted. The era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbearable, and the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable. Even if, let's just say, even if the United States had zero emissions, nobody was polluting at all, it wouldn't change anything, you guys. It wouldn't change anything. You still have other countries that are increasing pollution, like China and India. But why not go after them? Why are we constantly going after us that, sure, of course we pollute, but nowhere near the level that you're seeing from other countries? It's just always interesting to me that we're always beating the crap out of ourselves, but not other people, for doing heinous things, like actual concentration camps still going on around the world, more slavery around the world than there was when we became a country. I just don't understand why we're always bashing ourselves. I mean, that goes from the education system to bashing us as a country, to the economic level being capitalists and a free market society, bashing our country, to our foreign policy, to imperialism, all these things. I mean, the history of our country, we constantly are bashing us. But if you look out and just leave the bubble of America just for a little bit and see what we're doing, or what other countries are doing, it's mind blowing. I'm not saying that we shouldn't look within ourselves to see what we can change. Of course, that's always the case. You should even be doing that on an individual level. But on a global level, it's just astonishing to me that it's oh, look what the Americans are doing. Look at what we could be doing better, and all these other things. Look at China. Look at India. Look at all these other countries. It's so head spinning. Am I making sense here? I don't ever know if I'm just rambling and not making sense. To me, in my head, I'm making sense. But sometimes when you're thinking and just kind of off the cuff, it's not coming out in probably a logical and linear way. But the air is supposedly unbreathable, you guys, and the heat's unbearable and all these other things. I was just in Florida. It was hot. I'll admit it was hot. But at no point they go, oh, this is climate change. I've been in worse heat on the East Coast. The heat index was 120. like more than 10 years ago when I was like 16 years old. Like, it's always been hot. I just don't understand why we deal with this every single summer. So because climate is changing, it's unbreathable, it's global boiling now, it's not even global warming anymore. Biden's light bulb ban begins. So it's so endless on the ban of what you can and can't do, government overreach. You know, they're going after your stoves, your gas, your electric. Hell, what else are they going after? Wood burning fireplaces. I mean, there's a refrigerators was the most recent one. So now it's light bulbs. And Republicans blast latest green policy prohibiting sales of incandescent and similar halogen light bulbs. I mean, it's so tiring. I know it's tiring for you as much as it is me, but it's like, can we just leave us alone? There's other fish to fry. There's other things going on in this country than you going after light bulbs. The Biden administration's ban on the least efficient light bulbs came into force on Tuesday, triggering an angry response from conservative media channels and some Republicans. It is part of an efficiency rule to phase out older, high-energy incandescent light bulbs. In a free market system, if something is very inefficient and there's something better that's either along the same price level or cheaper, which one would you go for? They're the same price. Let's just say, in this case, one's really inefficient and one is really efficient. Which one would you probably go with? Efficient. So you would imagine at some point these would phase themselves out at some point in history, because efficiency is always going to get better, primarily in a capitalist society, in a free market society. That because people want efficiency for something that's cheaper, they're going to buy the thing that's for cheaper and it has more efficiency. So the government has to step in, though, and ruin everything. The rules sets a minimum level of brightness for light bulbs designed to reduce energy consumption. In the long run, the new light bulbs will save consumers money. That's always in the long run, huh? It's always, you know, if they do that with electric vehicles, well, in the long run, it's going to run you cheaper. Well, if we remove this, it's going to run you cheaper. I think they're doing that with your gas stoves and your refrigeration and all that other stuff. Even so, some Republicans were quick to slam the measure, which effectively overturns the Trump administration's decision to roll back environmental standards. Representative Andy Barr said on Twitter, President Biden continues to push liberal fantasies through the weaponized federal agencies. The Department of Energy should be focused on American energy independence, not on what light bulbs you can or can't purchase from your home or business. Thank you. 100% correct. There's bigger fish to fry here. Our energy grid is in jeopardy of the Chinese attacking it if we were to go to war. I don't think we're so consumed with like the nuances here. Not even the nuances, like the little bitty things. It's like that saying in the Bible, what is it? That you're so focused on the gnats, but there's a camel standing right in front of you. We're so focused on all these other things where there's actual big problems in this country that we need to figure out, which our energy is one of them and our electric grid. And we need to protect it so that when a foreign adversary at some point in history probably attacks us, that we're not going to get shellacked. And they've already done studies on this of basically if something were to affect our energy grid, you're going to see a vast swaths of Americans die. I forget how long it was. Some of you could probably Google it or maybe throw it in the live chat on basically how long the average American is going to survive once our electric grid and our facilities, our communication systems shut down because a foreign adversary attacks us. We're in some deep crap here, you guys. Deep crap. Not to scare you, but this is one of the main things we probably should be focusing on. But, you know, our leaders want to focus on light bulbs. Ooh, that's exciting. Consumers will not have to check their homes for illegal light bulbs. Instead, the measure focuses on sales. It requires new light bulbs to emit a minimum of 45 lumens per watt, setting a standard of brightness that ensures the least efficient bulbs are phased out. Again, that would happen naturally. Most likely, it will take some time. Things take some time to change, like electric vehicles. Folks, in 2015, when I was an auditor, we used to audit there's this company that basically builds, like, I don't know if it's called a manifold or what, but it basically goes on top of a stack that helps create clean energy when something's being burned off. And we used to, you know, when you show up to do an audit, usually they'll give you like a tour of the facility and the manufacturing area and all this other stuff. And, you know, you can ask questions and look at the processes and all these other things. And, you know, when you're asking about how you're doing as a company and you hear these things of how it's, you know, hurting the company because the government's putting in all these regulations, these red tape, you know, you also hear the business also say, look, we were planning on doing this regardless, but it's pushing us to a level that's hurting us rather than helping us. And you see this effect that happens where the government is pushing in these regulations that are hurting these businesses rather than helping them, where the private sector is going to get there at some point. It just takes some time. not saying we can't push people, but for example, that business partner that I was talking to was already in the process of getting to this phase, but with this regulation, this tape had to lead to firings, had to lead to, you know, shutting down certain factories and all these other things. I don't want to get into it, but you understand where I'm going of the private sector would get there. It's just going to take a little bit longer, but the government has to come in and kind of ruin everything, which usually gets passed down to you and I in terms of price, because businesses want to keep their same profit, especially those that are in the public sector. You know, if you're having a 5% increase in revenue or whatever, you know, the shareholders want to see a 5% increase the following year or more. But because of this red tape, sometimes you're not going to get to that 5%. And so people get pissed, they get upset, they start selling their shares and do all these other things. It's for a way bigger discussion. We're just talking about light bulbs here. In practice, it means the old-fashioned incandescent light bulbs, which work by passing electric current through a thin filament, which heats up and glows, would be consigned to history in favor of LED bulbs. These use diodes and a semiconductive material to emit photons of light. Although they are more expensive to buy, they last up to 50,000 hours longer than traditional bulbs, according to the Department of Energy. So why don't you go after those LEDs that don't last up 50,000 hours and push them to create something that lasts 50,000 hours if you want to be inclusive on this whole thing? Remember, inclusive only works, right? Equality only works when there's a certain narrative that wants to be pushed here. So they're going to screw out one industry here for another, which is typical of a government that favors, their global warming, global boiling initiative, climate change, all those other fun things. Well, our last story of the day here, folks, we're running a little bit long, but I wanted to get to this, where Bud Light distributors have given up hope for sales to return to normal. Consumers have made a choice. We made a choice a long time ago when this was all going out, because we saw your true colors, and then you say, oh, we're hearing you and all these other things, and then you didn't change anything. You didn't change your tune at all. Bud Light distributors have given up hope for the beleaguered beer to recover its sales from a disastrous marketing campaign with a transgender TikTok influencer led to a devastating boycott. The New York Post spoke to a distributor about the debacle. Quote, consumers have made a choice, said the executive of a beer distributor in Texas who didn't want to be identified. Quote, they have left Bud Light, and that's how it's going to be. I don't envision a big percentage of them coming back, he added. Probably correct. Again, I got pushback when I talked about this. I even said Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, was wrong in terms of how I thought Bud Light should handle this whole thing of going dark, like no social media for months and months. And people were pushing back that I was wrong. And they were also pushing back the fact that I said, look, this gives an opportunity for those people that love beer to try other products and other beers, because it's so accessible and it's easy to look at the shelf and pick another beer that you may have wanted to try in the future, but you were so comfortable with Bud Light that you didn't want to switch, or that other beer might have been slightly more expensive, and so you'd rather stay with what you know. But now, because what you know goes against your values and your creed of this great country, they're now going to go for something else. And what is that value and creed? Just objective truths. What is good and what is wrong? Knowing what reality is and being grounded in truth is highly important to the American citizen, as well as the structure of a society. And once you break that barrier of trying to gaslight the American people of what is truth and what is false, how are they ever going to trust you again? When you have somebody that can't identify what true reality is, how can you possibly trust anything that comes out of their mouth going forward? I mean, this goes into a bigger philosophical question, but I think you all understand where I'm going with this. You lose people's trust. There's that saying, it takes years to build trust, seconds to break it. And you broke the American people's trust, meaning your consumer, those that buy your product. You broke their trust, and it's going to take you years to get that back, if at all. But again, you have to show people that you are rooted, that you are grounded in what is true and what is reality. And right now, you ain't doing it. And that you should have gone dark for a while, done a recap, and then come back later. But again, people can buy a new beer, a new product, and once they like that new beer product, even though it's slightly more expensive, or heck, might be even cheaper, they're not going to go back to what they knew before. They have left Bud Light, and that's how it's going to be. Again, I don't envision a big percentage of them coming back. Bud Light and other beers from Anheuser were hit with a boycott after Dylan Mulvaney posted about a partnership with the beer to promote March Madness on the influencer's social media account. I mean, that did devastating stuff. This is the one stat I wanted to read to you right here. One poll found that a majority of Americans supported the boycott against Bud Light, while only 30% said they were opposed to the boycott. So who's that 30%, right? What I find interesting is that 30% has the possibility of correlating to about the 30 to 34% that would still vote Democrat, regardless of what Joe Biden does. Mulvaney has since turned on Bud Light and claimed the company abandoned the influencer as critics attacked. As of Monday, Anheuser-Busch stock had fallen basically 14% since the beginning of the Mulvaney marketing stunt. This is equivalent, folks, of $18 billion with a B. in market value, $18 billion. It knocks the wind out of you when you say that, but they're firing executives. They're cleaning house on the inside. I mean, I think they will recover. Somebody might have to buy them out. I'm not sure. I'm curious. Again, we always ask this for the comment section. Please leave a comment. It does support the channel, but I'm genuinely curious. That's why I ask you specific questions. Do you think somebody's going to buy them out? Do you think they're going to recover? Do you think they're going to downsize and then slowly build back up? I don't know. Really don't know. This is the debacle. I don't know how you climb out of this hole. My suggestion was you go dark for a bit. You just leave it alone, because Americans, I hate to say it, Americans have a short, attention span. That's why you see like the Afghan thing, the Afghan pullout from the Biden administration. Nobody talks about it anymore. It was a debacle. It was terrible. Just a horrendous way to run a removal out of a country or whatever. But I mean, you look at everything, the 40-year inflation, the way the economy is going, to their foreign policy, Russia invaded Ukraine. Like, you look at all these things that happened under the Obama administration, and it kind of just falls off. And then you'll see something else come up, and then that falls off. And then something else comes up, and that falls off. So I think, again, if Anheuser-Busch would have just went rogue, like would have went dark and not done anything, and just focused on, its beer, and then doing a full restructuring and rebranding, and actually come out going, we hear you. We're back at our values. This is what we stand for. And honestly, probably should have said, hey, we made a mistake by going with this influencer. We shouldn't have done it. I think it would have been fixed, right? But I feel like they shot themselves in the foot, just in the same way that we continue to shoot ourselves in the foot with our country by voting a certain way consistently. But look, there's a lot of stuff we had to cover here on today's show. We went a little bit long. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit that like and subscribe button. Head over to baldbrad.com. Get yourself some merchandise. We got t-shirts, hoodies, the Bald Brad Show mug. We got the book. I almost said textbook. I'm all over the place, folks. It's always that way in the mornings. That's the tough part about doing this so early in the morning. But heck, I love hanging out with y'all. Become a member today. We got the join tab right there. Some of you are regulars. It's not expensive, folks. It's $4.90. I should say it's not expensive. $4.99 is expensive to some people. Don't feel like you have to. It's just a way to give back to the show if you feel like you get something out of it, if you feel like you enjoy hanging out with like-minded people, and it helps grow the show, gets new lenses for the camera. We are, where it's going right now, if you were curious, my computer, and you can't hear it because I actually have a filter on my mic. I've had this computer for almost a decade now, actually, my desktop, and it's not running really well. I had to remove a couple fans. I'm using cooking oil on one fan. So what I'm saving up for right now, which is going to take some time, is a new desktop. So that's where the money goes, is to upgrade this stuff. And that's kind of what we're working with here on the show. So please don't feel like this is all like, I don't know what you call it, high production value. We got a light in the back here that I think I got for like $10, maybe less, on Amazon or something, but it works. We get the show out, but I'm always try to be transparent with you of like where things are going and what are we saving up for? Where's your hard-earned money going for supporting the show and all those things. So thank you so much for always supporting the show, helping us make it bigger and better. And that's it. I'll see you tomorrow here on the Bald Brad Show.